Creole, Cantonese, Haitian Creole, Mandarin, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And there is a button on Zoom, if you're watching from Zoom, that says interpretation services, correct? Okay. Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the first Morrissey Commission meeting. I'm excited. I know everyone else here is excited, especially those of us who've watched the journey. We're here to talk about Morrissey Boulevard, talk about the future reconstruction, and get public input from all of you who are going to be impacted by this, so we can understand your vision, a chance for the commissioners to also talk about what they're thinking. So first, I'm going to go over some quick remarks, and then we are going to go ahead and get directly into the presentation. So as I said, this is the first commission meeting. I want to recognize our partners, City of Boston, Mayor Wu, and her team, Chief of Streets Yasha, Franklin Hodge, and BPDA Director Arthur Jemison. Also, we have our colleagues from Environmental Secretary Tepper's office, DCR Commissioner Brian Arrigo. We also have members of the Dorchester Legislative Delegation, including Senator Nick Collins. We will have Karen Zirkle in place of Representative David Beal, Representative Dan Hunt, General Counsel Dave Mullins from the UMass Building Authority, and Councilor Frank Baker. I do want to take this opportunity to say congratulations for an unbelievable career as you are transitioning into your next role. So thank you. I mean, I didn't know Senator Collins was going anywhere, so I was trying to get around. We have a very short slide deck before we get into the discussion. So now I'm going to hand it off to Ethan.
Advance the slide, please. Thank you, Secretary and Commission members. My name is Ethan Britland. I'm from MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning. I'm going to turn it over to Ashley very quickly to go over the Zoom controls.
Good evening, everyone. We're just going to quickly go over the Zoom controls for this evening. You can use the drop-down menu to check your microphones and speakers. If you'd like to ask a question or share any comments, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom. And then if you also want to, if you would like to speak to ask your question or share your comment, you can use the raise your hand button also at the bottom. And then there's also the interpretation button also at the far right on the bottom as well. And you can select one of the languages and you will be joining that room. And if you are unable to access the internet or having technical problems, you can call into the meeting at 305-224-1968. And the webinar ID is 863-958-45857. And if you're having any other technical difficulties during the presentation, you can also call 1-888-799-9666.
So this slide here is just to talk about our meeting notes and procedures. Obviously, this meeting is being recorded. So by continuing, you accept that it's being recorded, and all the recordings will be transcribed and posted on our website. Your microphones and webcams are automatically disabled upon entering the meeting. And so ultimately the meeting will go into questions at the end of the presentation. So here's our agenda. And again, I just wanted to say my name is Ethan Britland. I work for MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning, and I'm here to present on behalf of the multi-agency team for a conceptual planning study of the Morrissey corridor that is being conducted to perform the technical work for the commission. So this is our agenda slide. The secretary has called the meeting to order. She has introduced the commission members. And now I'm going to present on the study. We have our background very quickly. We're going to go over our existing conditions work, how we're approaching our design work, and also our planned public outreach, of which this meeting here is the first. and then our schedule next steps, and then we open it to discussion members as well as public comment. So again, here are commission members graphically shown on this slide. And so this is a little bit of background on the actual commission. These are the members again, and deliverables. We are looking at a recommended plan of transportation improvements for the corridor, comprehensive as well as short-term investments. And one thing that's not on the slide, it's due by June of next year, 2024. And the legislation itself is obviously text as legislation is. So with this slide, we summarize the commission goals into sort of graphically represented formats. Obviously, we want to improve mobility for all users in the corridor. We want to strengthen climate resiliency, adaptation for the corridor, and ultimately present a plan with a design concept alternatives that identify short-term as well as long-term investments for the corridor. And again, I'm here on behalf of a multi-agency team that's conducting the technical work. In addition to MassDOT, we have BPDA, we have the City of Boston, we have DCR, and we have EA represented. To the right on the slide, I just wanted to point out quickly, that's our consultant team that we have contracted with. And the purpose of me showing this very quickly is to show that there's a lot of specialties involved. So as part of our technical work, we do access a lot of subject matter experts. And so I'm going to get into the presentation on the study right now. So, excuse my notes. I'm going to start us off with some background context. I want to set the stage with respect to planning and project development in the area. In 2017, Department of Conservation and Recreation brought Morrissey design to 25%. MassDOT has recently initiated 2 projects, the K-Circle Columbia Road Interchange Project, as well as the Beats Bridge Project. And the City of Boston has 2 very large initiatives, both the JFK UMass Station Access Study, so looking at improving access in the area, as well as a Climate Ready Boston and Climate Ready Dorchester study. Now, this is a multi-phase, multi-year effort to ensure resiliency for the City of Boston against future climate change. So, question, why redesign now? The 2017 design did take into account future climate assumptions, but admittedly, they're older and climate assumptions and modeling changes quite frequently, and it's evolving. And as mentioned in the prior slide, the City of Boston has a neighborhood study called Climate Ready Dorchester that was conducted to ensure, again, climate resiliency and adaptation for the area, the neighborhood. So given this, the efforts underway, community feedback, and the significant amount of development pressure in the area, now is the time to develop a comprehensive plan for the corridor. And as is customary for best planning, transportation planning practices, we're building upon the 2017 design, but we're updating it with future climate change assumptions and modeling. Excuse me. This slide, I wanted to pause on just quickly. I mentioned development pressure, and there's a lot going on in the area, I think, as we all know. Dorchester Bay City is obviously one of the bigger projects in the area, but there are a lot of City of Boston Article 80, and Article 80 is their permitting process for land use development projects. So there are a lot in the pipeline, and so again, this is the significant development pressure that I noted. And I wanted to get into our study scope process very quickly. This is essentially how we're going to conduct our technical work. And so as a team, we develop and analyze our alternatives. And as we do that, we coordinate with the commission. Obviously, this is one of our first interactions with the commission. And so this is one thing that we're going to continue to do as we move forward. And we also want to make sure that when we come out of this, we have design concepts that we can advance into project development. And ultimately, we need to coordinate with all the various projects going on in the area, such as Climate Ready Boston, Go Boston 2030, and obviously build off the 2017 design. So, study area. I just wanted to show our study area very quickly. It's from Neponset in the south to Preble in the north. We've sort of logically broken this up into 3 sections for the purpose of our technical work. It's a fairly long corridor, but for reasons I'll get into in a later slide, we've broken it into a southern, central, and northern section. Now, we've been able to conduct a majority of our existing conditions work. And while much of this, I'm sure, is already known to members of the commission and audience and those online, we do have to conduct our due diligence, our technical work, in order to document our issues, opportunities, and ultimately constraints, so that we can move forward with any of our alternatives, developing, analyzing, and engaging with the commission. So existing conditions, just kind of high level, we understand there's a lot of congestion in the area, high crash levels, bicycling and walking facilities are few and they're not very safe. But we understand that in the future as well, there's going to be a strong demand for walking and bicycling, a lot of development projects. And current and future flood risk. Now, as governmental agencies and specifically transportation related agencies, we need to be cognizant of heat related impacts of climate change. There's obviously poor east-west connectivity between waterfront and the communities to the west. And we have a very diverse population of EJ and transit-dependent communities. And so it's something we need to be cognizant of as we go through our alternatives and public involvement. And the last note there, as referenced, there's a lot of development growth in the area. And that can be obviously opportunities for us. So documenting our existing conditions allows us to move forward with development of our alternatives and analysis of alternatives. And so as we move forward, these are our high level goals for our design approach. We want to improve corridor mobility. We want to make sure that a corridor is resilient. And we understand that with all these development projects going on, there's a lot of we have to connect them. So we want to make sure that there's a sense of place when all these projects are put together and the corridor is in its future, transformation look. And ultimately constructability. We want to ensure that anything that we move forward into project development can be constructed and feasible without significant permitting and the long process that might obviously affect the constructability. So just digging a little deeper on a design approach for climate adaptation and resiliency. Apologies for the water. So again, we had broken the corridor into 3 sections. And so this slide is meant to graphically represent a piece of that. And so what you're looking at here is the black and green in the northern and southern ends are projects that are either in the pipeline, planned or underway. And those are projects that provide climate resiliency and barrier against any kind of storm surge or sea level rise in the future. The central section where it's orange is where we as a team have to be more focused on developing climate resilient infrastructure. And it's a little difficult to see on this slide, but at the top is a graphical representation of our design flood elevation. And so our climate modeling has assumed a certain sea level rise as well as storm surge. And so we are planning for future climate change assumptions. And so we want to focus on that central piece of the corridor because the other northern and southern ends have a lot of projects already underway. So this is the smaller graphic, a little bit blown up. It's illustrative, it's not to scale, but this is a portion of that central section north of Bianculli, and the blue checkered line is meant to represent the future year design flood elevation that we're using. And if you look, that the bottom line is where current elevation is. So obviously it's a very low point in where the sea level rise and storm surge could affect infrastructure. So that's something we really need to be concerned about as we move forward. So again, our north and south zones, our design approach is a lot of placemaking, because again, with projects underway, we want to make sure that we link them up and that the public realm is cohesive and it makes sense in terms of a sense of place. And obviously infrastructure, we want to make sure that there are, again, as the slide earlier, there's a lot of infrastructure projects underway. We want to make sure they all connect and that they all capture storm runoff properly, and that and the connectivity is there between them. And then environmental mitigation, we just want to make sure that it's not just about building hard infrastructure. We want to make sure that we have a lot of other of our resilient methods in place. And ultimately, everything we do is going to be around wrapped around a planned public outreach approach. And so again, this first meeting here of the commission is one of our first touches of the public involvement plan. We also have, we're going to have a public survey at some point. We do have digital materials that we're going to be posting. This presentation will be posted. We have other outreach activities to disadvantaged communities, environmental justice. We also have language access, as noted at the beginning. We have interpretation and translation. We have an email listserv that you may have gotten an email from on this, and ultimately we do have a web page. And so as we move forward, we expect to have 3 more meetings of the commission. This one here in the fall 2023 is the kickoff, and I just covered existing conditions, as well as it's considered the first commission meeting. And then in the winter, so early winter, we're going to have our second meeting, and we will have a 3rd meeting in late winter, and that'll cover alternatives development analysis. And sometimes can be a bit of an iterative process, so those 2 meetings could blend a little. And ultimately, in the spring, summer of 24, we will have a final report as the study team, but the commission also is going to be delivering their recommendations to the legislature. And so again, this is next steps. So next commission meeting is in winter. So we're going to be presenting more detailed alternatives. We'll talk about our evaluation criteria, which essentially is how we measure the various alternatives to each other. We want to gather feedback on the alternatives from the commission and the members of the public. And so with that, that is the kickoff and existing conditions presentation from my piece. I'm going to turn it back over to Secretary Tibbetts-Nutt.
Thank you, Ethan. Mayor Wu, I know you're a little short on time, so I want to hand it over to you first for any remarks.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you for your leadership on so many different issues. Very, very grateful to see you out in community. And I heard a sense of finally from a lot of community members that this meeting is taking place. So we're thankful to all of the commission members here, and I'm honored to serve alongside everyone at this table and the City of Boston folks who are out in the audience as well. In addition to Arthur and his team at the BPDA doing waterfront resilience and all of our planning and project review, Chief Yasha Franklin Hodge and Chris Osgood, our senior advisor on infrastructure, and all of their teams at transportation and infrastructure planning. Thank you for everything. I wanted to touch on 3 points. One on the climate resiliency and flooding part, one on just the usage of the roadway in general, and then one on K-Circle. So I think everyone in this room knows just how often Morrissey Boulevard already floods, right? Multiple times throughout the year, whether it is the king tides, higher spring tides, coastal storms. And I have been, a couple king tides ago, standing in the roadway in a moment where it was completely submerged up past your ankles, watching ambulances trying to just navigate, go up on the side so they can just get through. It is a safety issue, not only for the people who are in need of what is moving along the road, emergency services and just getting to and fro. But also all of the residents who are on the other side of the roadway where we really need this to be a protection for the higher water levels and more intense storms and rainfall that we're already experiencing. So, the amazing team at the city has completed, as of this last summer, our coastal resiliency planning along the entire 50 miles of Boston's coastline. And our attitude is we are ready to be done planning and just doing. And so that's why it's very exciting to be partnering with the state on this critical piece of it. However, even when the road is not flooded, it is not the ideal experience for anyone. The congestion, the bottlenecking, the crashes and collisions. Over the summer, we saw 4 people hospitalized from just one single collision on Morrissey. And even talking to folks before the meeting started here, like Mr. Donovan, hearing the need for this to be safe for everyone, those vehicles and drivers who are just trying to get around our city and get to work and get to their families, and also creating the opportunity for pedestrian and cyclist access. We have seen in other parts of the city that when you actually take something that's a really bad bottleneck and traffic spot, you can change it in ways that unlock everyone being able to use the roadway. And that's to finally have a north-south walking, cycling pathway for people to access the harbor walk or get to spend feel like they can get to the beach without taking their lives into their own hands. And so that is really important, especially, I'm going to lift up Mr. Walsh's list. I know he's going to go through it later. We've all seen this list. How much growth there is in this area that we need the infrastructure to be performing at a level to sustain that. Otherwise, all that we're doing to try to boost housing, bring new jobs, try to make it so that people can afford to stay here because we're producing that housing. Folks don't just sit in their homes, not going anywhere. And we need this, it couldn't come sooner. And so along those lines, this is my last point on Kosciuszko Circle. Nightmare, Kosciuszko Circle. I know this kind of got broken off in the planning process from the rest of the corridor, and it's, a sort of significant effort in and of itself, but I would just urge that it can happen in parallel, in tandem, because the traffic impacts down Morrissey, the safety, the, likelihood for collisions are completely tied to what happens in K Circle and the traffic management and planning in that area. So those are the points that I have to make. I'm sorry I have to leave early for a different commitment, but just want to thank everyone and really excited to be fully in this process and moving it along.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to open up to the rest of the commissioners for comments, questions. Senator Collins.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And as we say in the legislature, and through you to the governor, providing this access, we're looking at legislation we passed out of the committee, but the city's doing it, the agencies of the state are doing it. And we had a training a few weeks ago with the Attorney General's office, and it's amazing. While this room is filled, I'm sure we're going to learn that we have quite a few participants online. So thank you for providing that access to the BPDA director, the mayor. And I do want to give out a shout out to Representative Dan Hunt, who in multiple capacities has done a lot of work on this corridor, probably knows about it more than anybody, in the great work that's been done. We do have some great success stories already, and one of those is the Greenway that's made it all the way from Mattapan Square, and with the work of the commissioner and DCR right across the street. It does bring up a point, though, and I think it's really important what the mayor said about Kosciuszko Circle, because it is the linchpin at the front that can bottleneck quite a bit. So it is part of the language here. We're looking at it, so we made sure that. And what happens, and I think the councilor has brought it up in the past, and others from the community, not just how we make the corridor more resilient, but access across from the water side to the community. Whereas if you think about it right now, if you came out of UMass Boston, you have to drive all the way to Kosciuszko Circle, to loop back around just to get to this building, if you're coming from campus on a vehicle or a bicycle. And, you know, as the growth continues, we're gonna find ourselves in so much more congestion. So I'd like to, and I hope with the planning team, we're gonna take a look at some options on how to get across, you know, on the perpendicular way from one side to the other, because there's not an opportunity to do that right now. The community's been loud and clear. I want to recognize Jake Walkman, who's going to be my designee on the commission from the Columbia Savin Hill Neighborhood Association. And, you know, just to think about what happens when and it's been brought up, the environmental justice communities, when it rains, and you know, I think everyone has that image in their head about Morrissey Boulevard with the mayor in her rain boots, you know, indicating how bad it can get, that it forces people to drive up Columbia Road, sitting in traffic, blowing their exhaust all over the place, Adams Street, Bowden Street. I mean, the neighborhoods of Dorchester get crushed. And so being able to put us in a different place is gonna help us really address an inequity beyond an ability to have our transportation infrastructure meet the needs of the 21st century. Dorchester is the biggest neighborhood of the city. It's, you know, key to the commuters inside Boston. Means a lot to the regional economy, especially now, not just in the future, where we're looking at a lot of opportunities, life sciences and other areas to bring access to jobs. So I'm excited to be a part of this and really hope that we can look at that crossover because, you know, it's been brought up in the past. I don't think it's been as big of a focus as the bike lanes or some other things that have taken up a lot of oxygen. But really looking forward to the outcome. And I think what's key, and we've seen this happen from time to time, even with people who largely agree on this, is with a little bit of a hiccup, given the priorities that offices have and agencies have, that we can get off track, even though we largely agree on what's happened. So this is sort of, I view a speak now or forever hold your peace period. So we get an opportunity with the state and planning for infrastructure. We know that the city is engaged along with the state at the federal level, trying to find pools of funds that, you know, we know will be available for a period of time, and we think now's the time to act. So excited to be a part of this, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you for the warm introduction. I forgot I was leaving. Thank you, everybody, for convening here tonight. Thank you for the legislation, the mayor and your team. This is actually, I first got involved in politics to go to meetings around Kosciuszko Circle. Ray Flynn was the mayor then. If you come down Columbia Road and you take a right to go south onto 93, that 3-decker there, that's right there. My father was born in that 3-decker. If people have listened to the PBS, the Big Dig podcast, I don't know if it's GBH or whatever, it's an amazing podcast, but what they don't talk about at all is 93 when you come out of the city. 93, I believe, went in 51. My family was still there. Of course, was there. My first brother was born in 51. There's no talk of it. There's no talk about how it separated Dorchester from the water. And at that time, we need roads, we need things like that for commerce and for whatever regular life, but what the roads and the train and now the bike paths, what they do is provide ways for people to cut through my neighborhood, to cut through Dorchester. The Senate had spoken about west to east, very important to us. I grew up down off of Crescent Ave, 60-foot highway as your backdrop. You could not get over. We did get over there, but it was difficult. It was difficult to get through there. We breathe diesel from the trains. We breathe diesel and exhaust from the highway above. We live as close to anybody to the beauty that is the new Boston Harbor and Dorchester Bay and UMass and those sorts of things. Now, fast forward, we're presented with development that has scale that we can actually talk about rail fixes for Kosciuszko Circle, for Morrissey Boulevard. And those discussions started happening about 8 or 10 years ago, when the talk was around the stadium. The Crafts wanted to build a stadium. I don't think anybody wanted the stadium, but that got the talk going. As I sit here, we know that people change, offices change, faces change, but the problems are all the same. Ray Flynn was when I first started talking about, I told you earlier, that Ray Flynn got elected in 83. So that was probably around 1990 that I started getting involved as a 22-year-old kid, because for my interest, going from Spring Garden Street to get over to Carson Beach, you needed to cross an on-ramp, an off-ramp, go around the rotary, another off-ramp, an on-ramp, something that's called the chute, two-way chute, they call it. So that's 7 dangerous areas they had to cross, picture me in rollerblades, diving to get over there. So I said to myself, something had to change. And my mother, in all her wisdom, my mother, I think, was the smartest person that ever lived. I'm sure everybody thinks of their mother like that. I hope my kids think that of me, but they don't. She would always say, and she was mother of 13, so of course she would say it, picture yourself pushing a baby carriage. Can you get through there pushing a baby carriage? No, Mara, I can't. Still can't do that now. So I'm just here, I'm grateful that we're together talking about this, and that there's continuity here, because like I said, the faces aren't gonna be, I've been driving this thing my whole life. I'm not gonna be here in an official capacity, so that concerns me. But the fact that we have a legislated commission in place makes me feel good. I want to support the development. I think the development for us here in Dorchester, we've really had, being 56 now, I went through 40-something years of my life where I saw no investment in Dorchester at all. As we sit in this building here is the first building that's about the future, not just in Dorchester, but in Boston and in the region. We have job training happening here, real jobs happening here. So we want to be part of it. We don't want to be trapped in our neighborhood. We want the, for lack of a better term, the spoils that are going to come with this development. We want to have access to it. We can't have that access unless there's a real honest effort, planning effort, and then execution between city and state. Part of our problem, you'll notice, Councilor John Fitzgerald is here also, and John, you'll notice part of the problem when you come to Dorchester, you'll see, oh, the state owns that, city owns that, PPTA owns that, this, that, they own that. Finally, we have everybody sitting here and talking. Let's please try and keep it together. Let's please, for the good of not just my community, and again, all of this infrastructure was put in place for people to be able to get through my community, not to come buy a pizza or a coffee on Dot Ave, to get through our community from the South Shore to downtown Boston. So, Secretary, thank you. Please keep it together for us. Please let us know what we can do. If we need to get people in rooms to help advocate with the governor, I think the mayor is on board. I hope the mayor is on board. And for the bureaucrats in the room, please keep this on your forefront. Please, let's do this so the people in Dorchester that I believe have been adversely affected by the highways, by the trains. They're all assets for us, but we're breathing in the back end of them. Let us get to the water. That's what we're looking to do. So thank you. And I look forward to the rest of what happens here. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, Representative Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and want to really say to all the civic leaders here and online, we appreciate your attendance, your participation, and your patience. I think the original study, Rob Lowell would know, when he was a young man in 1980, wasn't as in-depth as what was done in 2017, but that process has been ongoing. And as Council Baker said, up until kind of most recently, where Mayor Walsh kind of brought folks together and they did the most recent traffic study with DCR, EEA, MassDOT, and the city of Boston. It was really done kind of stovepiped and individually. And, you know, I'll be brief because the whole purpose of this is to hear from you. But people in this room should know that a lot of work has been done that's much more significant than the study from 1980. And since, you know, the 2017 study put together mostly by DCR in conjunction with the city of Boston and MassDOT has gotten us to a more significant design. And since that time, you know, I don't want to steal your thunder, Commissioner, but, you know, the backflow preventers on Morrissey Boulevard have prevented some of the storm surges that we've had. And instead of any tide above 11.2 feet, it is that more rare occurrence with a king tide and eve tide, et cetera. So there has been work done. There's been a modernization of the signalization at Freeport Street, which is significant. You know, that infrastructure had fewer cycles and less adjustability throughout the day. So even when no one was sitting at that space, taking a left or a right or trying to go straight, instead of keying up for 2 minutes, the light cycles you will have noticed are definitely going forward. So lastly, you know, this is a legislative commission, and a lot of people in this room, whether bureaucrats or residents or current commissioners, have been involved in this in one way or the other. But it was really the leadership of Senator Collins to put this commission together, this legislation. David Beal and myself helped on the House side, but really appreciate you bringing us together. Was that my time is up? Over the 3 minutes?
Thank you, Representative. I mean, you don't have to go if you don't want to.
You're live.
As a recovering elected official, I'll be very brief and just say that DCR is looking forward to the work ahead. And I know we're here to have conversations, but we're truly looking forward to the action that will be taken and making sure that there are safe and accessible spaces, you know, and certainly on Morrissey Boulevard for all users, and just looking forward to the work ahead. And we have a great group of collaborative leaders who are going to make sure that action is taken. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to recognize that we have two commissioners that are joining us by Zoom. We have Karen Zirkle, who is representing State Representative Beal, and then we also have David Mullen, the UMass Building Authority. I can't see from here if they have any comments, but I presume someone can. Okay. All right, we will close this part out. I'm going to hand it over to Ethan to kick off the public comment.
Thank you, Secretary. So we have two people that have signed up. Andrew Donovan, I'll call first for public comment.
Hi, thanks. I have basically, I'll be short, 3 simple ideas for each of the 3 main entities involved that I think would really help move the traffic through K Circle. For the Department of Transportation, lengthen the entry ramp all the way on Columbia Road northbound. Take the ramp all the way right up to the Southampton Street exit and widen the lane. The 2 lanes of traffic can sit there. It won't get them on the highway any quicker, but like Neponset Circle on ramp, it'll have 35 more cars that won't be blocking the rotary. I asked that the same thing be done on the southbound side, where traffic exits Columbia Road onto the southbound expressway. Make that lane longer if feasible. I know there's a charter school there. And double the width so the 2 lanes can sit there. They're not blocking the circle. I would ask also, because the central artery ended at South Bay. If you could extend the South Bay ramp or the South Bay entry lane right up to the Columbia Road exit, it would help them get on the highway a lot more. And their 25 minutes on the entry ramp would be decreased and they wouldn't be trying to drive through our neighborhood as much. Anyway, and if I could, just for the DOT, if it's not inappropriate, revisit the math concerning the cost benefit of the zipper lane. I mean, just the back of the envelope, there's 30,000 idling car hours every commute. You know, and just so 400 people can go, excuse me, for 6 miles up the road. I don't think it works because it takes so much out from everyone else. I love the idea, it just doesn't work. Okay, for the DCR, I appreciate this. Consider widening the Columbia Road between K Circle and Dot Ave, just so 2 lanes could turn left onto southbound expressway ramp. Maybe 2 lanes could turn right onto the northbound ramp, and 1 lane goes straight up to Dot Ave. It's actually, it's a fluke of geography we have here. It's not bad planning in the past. But it's like a little chokehold in hourglass. All the traffic north has to come down to our 4 little ways here. Morrissey Boulevard, the Red Line, the Expressway, and Dot Ave. Other than that, and then it goes all the way out to the south. It's like an hourglass, and we have to make it move as efficiently as possible. All right, I'm almost done. I'll finish up with the MBTA. I think they should install a new red line station at the Rotary by Lambert's. It's perfect. The tracks are right there. You wouldn't have to move the tracks at all. I think that would be a big plus because there's no public transit over there. What?
That's a community line there.
But it's
So
also the
if you-
Quincy line.
Yeah.
Isn't it the Quincy line as well?
No.
That's not the Quincy
I
line?
think so. I think that's.
Okay. Oh,
It is.
I thought so. Okay. If we could open Dorchester Ave over the tracks, it's been 2 years now, and replacing a bridge with no end date in sight. It's right there, it's Dot Ave. I mean, it's a bridge, you know, fix it. And number 3, impose an additional annual property tax on all new BPDA approved developments, not income restricted, once the individual permits get issued. These extra monies would be directed exclusively to the MBTA for their use as they see fit to make the system safer, more dependable, and ultimately free. The city can't work without mass transit, and it needs to be funded. Okay, thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I did write all that down, just so you know. And for the tea, so don't worry. I'll take a copy too. I want to make sure I nailed it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just my deed, I'll take the end.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much.
Members of the commission, we have as part of the webinar chat. I just wanted to bring up that 2 of the commission members have web chatted a response. So I wanted, if it's okay, I'd like to read them out loud.
Yes, please.
Great. David Mullen from the UMass Building Authority. He says, Secretary, members of the commission, on behalf of Barbara Cronky, Executive Director of the UMass Building Authority, thank you for including UMBA on the commission. We look forward to participating on this important matter. And Karen Zirkle from State Rep Beal's office. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Secretary, and thank you for having me. I'm Karen Zirkle from Rep Beal's office. The rep unfortunately is unavailable tonight as he and his wife are expecting a child soon and are at an appointment. The rep looks forward to working with the Morrissey Boulevard Commission, which impacts both South Boston and Dorchester. I will be taking everything back to the rep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public commenters?
We do.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to go over the commission first. Don Walsh, please.
Thank you. So first of all, my name's Don Walsh. I'm on the executive board of the Columbia Savin Hill Civic Association. First point is we'd like to thank Nick very much for pulling this together. Frank, thank you also for joining it to make this happen. Dan, thank you again for doing this. And Dave Beal, who can't be here. But you know, you guys have pulled this together. And as someone that's been involved for 50 years in civic stuff, I really have never seen the city and state being pulled together like this to do something which is unbelievably important to those of us who live here. The second, so that's my first point, is thanks to you guys who made this happen. The second thing is that all my friends in the Civic Association are totally sick of hearing me saying 10,000 and 7 million. You guys have to hear it this time. So we've done a very simple thing that we've listened to the developers and we've written down what they are proposing to do or are doing or have just recently done. 10,000 housing units in 7 million square feet of commercial space in and around the Columbia Savin Hill neighborhood. That's unbelievable. It's literally unbelievable. And it's when I say in and around Columbia Savin Hill, I'm basically saying Uppins Corner to South Bay, to the McCormick Housing Project, Columbia Point, Freeport Street, that area. It's broader than just Columbia Savin Hill, but that's area probably has 20,000 people living there today. And with 10,000 housing units, we're going to add 22,000 more people there. And so here's the interesting thing. I mean, the Civic Association, we never agree 100% on anything, basically. But we have supported huge projects, Dorchester Bay City, Center Court, this spot, Southline. So we have supported stuff. We are not in NIMBYs per se, but we want it done correctly. We want the planning to be done and then the necessary infrastructure to be done. I think that what you've started here is maybe the first step in getting that to happen. I don't know this for a total fact, but I've tried to do some research. I think that the 10,000 housing units in 7 million square feet that's in and around the Columbia Savin Hill neighborhood is, if not the largest, one of the 3 largest projects in the state. So this isn't just a city of Boston effort. It can be fabulous for the city. It could be terrific. It could be jobs. It could be new housing. Out of the 10,000 housing units, 20% of them are going to be for affordable housing, I assume. Arthur, that's what you're saying. So, I mean, there'd be a lot of win. There's no win if it's not done correctly. Plain and simple, it's not. So we really want to emphasize that we want to participate. We want to look over your shoulder. We want to speak out at meetings. We want to point things out. But we want you guys to support in putting this together because we all benefit from it. I don't want to be stuck for an hour in traffic trying to go get a loaf of bread, you know, and that's what's going to happen in the future. So anyways, thank you for listening. If you can remember 10,000, 7 million, I'll appreciate it.
Thank you.
I apologize if I misspeak on the name. I think it says Jake Walkman.
Hi, everyone. Jake Walkman. I also live in Savin Hill. I just wanted to thank Nick and thank the commission for putting this together. Like Don said, I'm looking forward to working with you. Also, you know, I don't think Andy fully gave his credentials, but he probably is closest to Morrissey Boulevard of anyone in this room. And we need the kind of creative ideas of the neighborhood and Andy and Don to really think of what we can do here that will be special and unique for Boston. And, along those lines, I think we can, as a community, look to other communities that might have done similar things with their coastline and how to get across the road, as Frank would say. And in addition to that, I think the only other thing I would add to the conversation is down by Lambert's, we've got those big new apartment buildings going up. And as all of us drive by, we can already see the mitigation efforts for crossing that road and getting over to the commercial space over there that are going to grow over time. It's just already, we can already see it's inadequate. So we got work to do down there as well. I think the BPDA could help by kind of enforcing more changes to the crosswalks. This commission can help as well. I think there's one or two planned. That's not enough. So we've got some work to do down there as well as up here to make sure that people can move back and forth across Morrissey Boulevard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Next, John Lyons.
Good evening. Thank you to all the members of the commission for coming here tonight. This has been a long time coming. I'm the president of the Port Norfolk Civic Association. We are about as cut off from the rest of Dorchester as any neighborhood in Dorchester, cut off by the railroad tracks, by the expressway, and in fact by Morrissey. All that I ask and that you consider as you go forward with this plan is that you remember the fact that you cannot get into or out of Port Norfolk without crossing Morrissey in one of two places. So allow for adequate access for us. At the same time, despite the desire here to create or recreate the parkway that Morrissey originally was, I think we all have to admit that it is still, like it or not, a regional transportation artery. That aspect has to somehow be considered and fit within this plan. When I leave my house and I go over the bridge into Quincy, I can tell you every morning that bridge is backed up probably at some point, sometimes a mile into Quincy. They're part of our region. They deserve our consideration as well. The people further up Galvin Boulevard into Cedar Grove, Mattapan, they've got a commute already, which is just horrible. And they've got no other way to get into town. One idea which I thought of, I didn't actually realize that this event was going to allow for ideas. One idea I've had from the beginning is if a road diet is to be imposed, there is so much land there. Could you consider a reversible dedicated bus lane and signalize it so that you could actually run that bus all the way down past the Ponset Circle, up Galvin, all the way to Morton to the fire station and serve that end of Dorchester, which is presently underserved, if not an outright transportation desert. In considering resiliency, please consider raising the roadway sufficiently to project out to at least 2070. This is a once in 100-year project, so let's get it right. And in raising the roadway, one thing which we might consider is installing retention ponds for the rainwater. The previous speaker mentioned correctly that the development in the area of Lambert's is very intense. We think it's far beyond what should have ever been permitted before this project was completed. And despite our participation in the Article 80 process, we were just outright ignored. We literally begged the BPA to do something about transit and do something about retaining floodwater. To look at the old maps before the expressway was there, when the railroad came in the late 1860s, that entire area of Morrissey, the whole commercial section, was marshland, and the water still seeks to return there. That's why we have the tide gates. That's why in 2018, the infamous 3-day storm, we had water spilling over at the Bees Bridge, coming down into Morrissey, and it flooded the area around CVS. It came up through storm drains into Ponset Circle. Port Norfolk was completely cut off, but now we're adding permitted 500 units of housing right in that stretch of Morrissey at the bowling alley and Freeport Tavern. There's another 100 units proposed for the Comfort Inn. And there's been open discussion during the Article 80 process by the developer that their intention is to build even more housing down there. I personally am not an NIMBY either. There's nothing wrong with housing. We need it. But you cannot stuff another 1,000 households into a corner which already has inadequate transportation. Do the transportation first, and we will go along with the housing and support it. 2 quick points. I look at the people who come off the Freeport exit, which I do not use because of the traffic problem. And I really feel bad for them. Most of those people are living up in the Glover's Corner area, that into Dorchester. They have no other way to get to their neighborhood because Dorchester Ave is usually gridlocked. If it's possible to consider some sort of an overpass there, if instead of just a signalized intersection, give those people a way to get in and out of their neighborhood as well. The problem is ultimately capacity and where all these cars going to go if you make it easier for them to get through one intersection off to the next. But I think anyone who lives in the Glover's Corner, St. Ambrose area towards Fields Corner, they all have to deal with that, just as the people at Columbia have to deal with K Circle. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for letting me speak. I will put some of these comments in writing, and we look forward to participating going forward. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Maria Lyons.
I thank you to the commission for letting the public speak. I'm just going to add a little bit to what John said. Obviously, he's my husband, but I serve as the environmental chairperson for the Port Norfolk Civic Association. I'm also a board member of the Neponset Watershed Association and a board member of the Neponset River Greenway. Although I'm not speaking for those 2 associations tonight, but I am a board member. I wanted to concentrate on the climate resiliency aspect of the plan. I noticed that not on the commission is anyone from Boston Water and Sewer. And Boston Water and Sewer has an idea to drain all the storm water. It will be a combination of seawater and runoff from the rain from the hills of Dorchester into the Morrissey Boulevard area. They have an idea to pipe that water, which is only going to get worse and worse as climate change gets worse, to our recreation areas. One being the Malibu, Savin Hill Beach area, another the Joseph Finnegan Park in Port Norfolk, and basically turn them into retention ponds, which will really end up mucky, unusable areas. And we want to save those. So in consideration of Morrissey Boulevard, we went to a lecture by the green infrastructure person from the city. I think her name is Kate English, and she had these wonderful ideas about tanks under the ground and gravel pits under the ground that really needs to be incorporated into if you're going to do Morrissey Boulevard, put them on Morrissey Boulevard. Don't destroy our parks. Put those retention tanks and gravel pits and the retention ponds that you're going to make tanks under Morrissey Boulevard. And that will save our recreation areas as best we can. As we know, Port Norfolk's going to get flooded anyway. But, and don't forget Port Norfolk, like John said, we are on the other side and we need to get in and out. So please provide us with some access ways in and out. And another idea I had, and this is a big, probably silly idea, but one of the reasons Morrissey Boulevard is so crowded, especially the southbound, is because there is no exit on 93 from Columbia all the way to Neponset, almost to Milton. There's no exit. So anyone who lives in most of Dorchester has to get off at Morrissey Boulevard, and then that crowds it up. If there's any way possible to make a new exit off of 93 somehow onto Freeport Street, that would maybe alleviate some of that traffic. It's just a wild idea, but it's an idea. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
I just wanted to let the commission members know, one of my colleagues from the city of Boston let me know that they are coordinating with Boston Water Sewer Commission as part of the study team effort.
Thank you.
So that represents those that have signed up in person. And we do have 2 online public comments that I just want to say out loud for the record. This one is from Ben Wetherill. I hope this plan will include a public boat launch. There used to be a boat ramp at the gas tank, but since that was lost, there is no public launch between Charlestown and Huff's Neck in Quincy. The other comment is Bill Forey. Will commissioners please ask staff to put out better notice of future meetings by posting them at least 2 weeks in advance and use the Dorchester Reporter, which has engaged audience of thousands of readers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who didn't have an opportunity to sign up to give public comment? Okay.
Could I, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, my apologies.
Just a note, as we get to the state bond recommendation timing. So I believe, when I was at DCR around October, November, December was when recommendations for 2025, the 5-year capital plan would be kicked up to EEA, to you, Secretary, and then to ANF. As you noted at the beginning, this commission's work will coincide with the beginning of the fiscal year 2025, which is July, July 1st. I imagine you're already thinking about this, but in any capacity that you can add in some bonding capacity as a recommendation for both agencies for 2025, if that's not already on your radar, and I imagine that it is.
It is. That was just a simple answer. It's like, yes. Okay, so that wraps up our public comment period. All right, well, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. We will make sure to advertise in certain publications ahead of the next meeting. But I do want to let everyone know that you can access the project updates on this ahead of the next meeting, and buckle up. I'm going to go through this entire website. It is www.mass.gov/K-circle-Morrissey-study and go under the social heading. We also have staff here that could stay for a few minutes if you have any questions. You can also take a picture of the QR code. Yeah, this is actually very cool. In case you didn't write down everything I just read. But like I said, we want to thank you. We will have another meeting in the winter time period and then 2 following meetings for a total of 4. So thank you everyone for coming out on a very cold night, and we will see you soon.